Law of progression in operation. Eternal consciousness is source or oneness that expresses and experiences in and through beings. When consciousness differentiates and emerges, it does so as progression. Progression is reflected in existence from enfoldment to unfoldment. The structure of progression underlies all existence and is expressed in all beings. Progression is the revelation of consciousness, and the law of progression ties existence together. Where there is being, there is progression and not stagnation. Progression is the motive force behind cycles, spirals, expansion, and flow. Revealed in humanity. Progression is our return to the infinite eternal. It is why we exist. For human beings, the purpose and meaning of life is progression, which means knowing ourselves as developmental beings, revealing our divinity and our humanity simultaneously. The law of progression is revealed in the cycle of life from birth to death, from creation to destruction, and back again. In this work, we use the word progression instead of evolution, so we can reserve evolution for nature. Progression generally has positive connotations, while evolution may not be beneficial for humanity. For example, plants and animals can evolve to become more deadly or poisonous. In contrast, progression is orderly based on laws of being, which encompass laws of nature. Progression happens along a developmental scale or a scale of learning. For example, in education, we progress by advancing through grade levels. We measure progression by accomplishments and by fulfilling standards. For many people, the spiritual path involves progressing from fragmentation and disorganization to wholeness and integrity across many domains. In the process, people demonstrate virtues such as wisdom and forgiveness. People are compelled to progress, and laws are applied as appropriate for one's level of learning. More specifically, laws are applied according to a person's personal development and spiritual development. Groups also experience levels of progression, and their maturity determines which behaviors are considered acceptable. For example, some societies have applied horrific forms of punishment until they declare that punishment should be humane. As human beings, we cannot know completely where someone else is in their progression on life's journey. So it is effective to treat people with as much discernment and compassion as possible. Progression generally involves moving from ignorance to criticism, tolerance and allowance, and finally to compassion. We move from relating from the personal to realizing the universal and operating with that awareness. We are held to higher and higher standards as we continue on the path of awakening, and our relationship with reality and facticity changes as we progress. For example, our assessments about who we are in the world become more and more in line with being, which is the embodiment of infinite and eternal consciousness. Progression involves a shift from dualistic thinking such as us, them, and good-bad into a unified and inclusive view of our inherent oneness. For example, in states of spiritual immaturity, it seems acceptable to lie so as not to hurt someone's feelings. As we progress, we learn the value of honesty in all situations, which may involve remaining silent. Another aspect of the law of progression is that it limits access to knowledge for which people are not ready. Receiving information beyond our level of progression can cause breakdowns, even if the harm is unintentional. For example, when people learn about manifestation while they are still operating from their personal self or ego, they may fall under the spell of their desires, skew their spiritual vision, and end up frustrated and disillusioned. Another example is when people partake of hallucinogenics without proper preparation or while in an unsettling environment. Such an experience can pull the foundation of life out from under them because they become absorbed in the phenomena and lose touch with everyday life. As always, it is effective to listen to conscience with receptivity and humility to avoid trying to opt out or skip ahead. Antithesis. One antithesis of progression is inertia. Examples of inertia include procrastination, stubbornness, laziness, willful blindness, and resistance. Sometimes people are not open to change. They may be set in their ways, or they may feel they lack the energy to take effective action. Another hindrance to progression is relating to the world through thingness, which means seeing objects and people as appearances instead of recognizing and emphasizing the available relationships and actions. Progression involves relating to the world as interconnected and dynamic, instead of as a commodity for personal use. Expediency is another antithesis to progression. When people focus on moving quickly, they may overlook critical steps. Similarly, when they focus on doing, acquiring, and having, they may not prioritize developing themselves as conscious beings. Societal demands and influences often distract people from progression and instead keep them spinning around in superficial efforts. Halting progression is a major way the ego retains control. It does so by interfering with a person's focus on laws of being. The interference may be very subtle, or it may be blatant. Ego is guided in its actions by personal wants instead of being guided by responsibilities and duties as given by conscience. Application: how to embody progression. An effective daily practice involves asking, what am I called to do, and what action should I take throughout the day to produce proper results? This practice also involves gaining understanding about what not to do. Progression and learning are joined together. Every action and experience can lead to progression because you can ask, who am I being while I do this? Conversely, every action and experience can lead to regression if you misuse the opportunity by being egocentric or thing-based, which means focusing on personal desires and objects instead of on conscious relationships. When you are doing a lot but not progressing, that generally leads to inertia and might indicate that you are out of alignment with laws of being. Measure progress by accomplishments both tangible and intangible. A key accomplishment in being involves turning experience into understanding. Understanding can lead to knowledge, and knowledge can lead to wisdom. But sidetracks abound. When you find yourself in a detour or dead end, regroup and carry on. Every experience is valid for learning.